Okay, in this video, I'm going to show you how to use your calculator to calculate a couple of things. One is how to calculate the mean, median, and mode using your calculator for a data set. So if I give you a data set, like we did in the previous video on central tendency, I'm going to show you how to use your calculator to get all of the statistics for the mean and the median. Okay? And then I'm also going to show you how to get the statistics, the mean, the sample mean, and the sample median for a frequency distribution or a grouped frequency distribution. And I'm going to use the examples that we did in class with the calculator, so you have a good reference for it. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do for the ungrouped frequency distribution or the data set. So I'm just going to use the data set that we used in class. The first thing we need to do, step one, is enter the data. Just like before, we're going to enter the data into the calculator. So we're going to go to Stat, and then Edit. So the Edit menu, and then under Edit, we're going to choose number 1, Edit. And so we're going to enter the data into list 1. Okay, so it doesn't matter which one you use, just pick one. So I'm going to use the first one. And so I'm just going to enter the data into the calculator. Okay, so this is the data that we used in the class for the AIDS drug. Okay, so this is the number of months that patients lived after they started receiving the new drug for the antibody drug. So I'm going to just start entering the data. Okay, so I have 40 observations. So that's the first thing I'm going to check, is to make sure that I have 40. So right there at the bottom, if you notice that the last observation the last number I typed in, it says L1 with a 40. That means that's the 40th observation. So I do have the correct number of observations in there. Okay, and so as you go through, you just want to make sure that you didn't do any typos accidentally. And then everything looks good, okay? So that's going to be the first thing. So once I have the data entered in, the next step is to do the calculation. So again, this is going to be a new step for you if this is the first time watching this video, okay? So let's go to, now we're going to go to Stat again, but this time we're going to go to the next menu option, which is Calc. So under Calc, if you notice, the very first option, option number 1, says 1 var stats. That's going to give you all of the statistics in one variable. So for one data set, one population, which is what we're dealing with. So we're going to pick 1 var stats. Okay, so now, with this calculator, it gives you this menu. So now, it's going to tell you, hey, where's the data located? That's your list. So the first thing you need to do is put in, where did you put the data? That's what the calculator needs to know. The function needs to know where the data is. So it already says L1, which is where I put my data, so I'm just going to leave that alone. Frequency list. For this case, we just leave it blank. We don't touch anything. So we go down to Calculate, and look at that. The very first output is X bar. That's the sample mean. And notice it's the same number that we got. And if we round that to the nearest decimal, we'll get the same number, 23.6, which is what we got last time. But there's more, because look at all those other statistics it gives you. Now, we're not going to use them all, but we are going to use some of these later on, okay? So if you notice the arrow at the bottom, right here off to the left here, this arrow here tells us, hey, there's more if you scroll down. So if you keep scrolling down, look at that. Right there is the median. And what did we find before that our median was? 24. Okay? Oh, and there's n. N is 40. Okay? So this gives you a lot of information. It's very powerful. We're going to use this quite a bit. Okay? And so just wanted to show you, that's how you calculate, that's how you find the mean and the median, and some other things too, for a data set. Okay? So again, there's going to be some other things that we're going to look at in a little bit, but I'm going to talk about that later. Okay? So this is how you use one variable stat function. Okay? So now, that's how you find the statistics if given a data set. Now, what if we're given a frequency distribution? Let's use that. Okay. So I'm going to do, the first one is going to be ungrouped. So let's quit out of this. Okay. So now, let's use the example that we did on the last video. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to Stat Edit. Okay. And I'm going to choose a different list now. I'm going to go to list 2. Okay. So now with the frequency distribution, I have 2 columns. So I'm going to have 2 lists that I need to use. So now I'm going to use the same example we did in class for the ungrouped frequency distribution. So let's say the first set is X. So this is going to be my X list. Okay? So 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4 were all the values of X. And then the next column is going to be my frequency list. Okay, the frequency list is going to be a list of all my frequencies. So for 0, there was 5. And for 1, there was 15. And then for 2, there was, oops, hold on. For 2, there was 6. And for 3, there was 3. And for 4, there was 1. Okay, so now there's my 2 lists. So this is my frequency distribution that we did in class. Okay, so this is how you find the mean. Okay, you go back to Stat, and we're going to go to Calc, and we're going to use one variable stats again. Okay, now the list, that's my X list. Okay, so I need to tell the calculator, or the function rather, where is the X list? Well, if you remember, we started with L2. So we need to change this to L2. How do we do that? We go up to second, and then right above the 2 key is L2. So we're going to hit 2, and it changes it to L2. Now, the next thing, remember in the last example, we said we're going to leave this blank. Why? Because we were working data. Okay, if I'm given data, I don't need the frequency list. But since I'm using a frequency distribution table, I need to use the frequency list because I need to tell the function where are the frequencies at. Okay, so the frequencies, if you remember, were in L3. So we need to go to second 3, and there's L3. So now if I go down to calculate, hit enter, and now look at that. It gives me the same answer for the mean, 1.3, that we got before. Now, interesting enough, this also gives me the median. The median is 1. So it gives me the median and the mean of the frequency distribution, among other things. Okay? Okay, so that's how you do with an ungrouped frequency distribution. So now let's do the next one, and let's do the grouped frequency distribution. And in this case here, I'm going to use the example we did in class for the semi-professional soccer players. So I'm going to go to edit again. And now this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to use lists 4 and 5. Okay? You don't have to. In fact, well, you know what? Here, I'm going to do something else. I'm going to show you something else on the calculator while I have this up here. Let's say you have data here and you don't want to use it anymore and you just want to use a new data set. The way you clear a data set from a list, that you clear the list, is you go up and you highlight the top where it says the list name. So in this case, L1. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here and I'm going to click on clear. Okay? One thing you do not want to do is click on delete. That will remove the entire column. It will delete your column. You don't want to do that. Okay? Well, in actuality, it only hides it, but again, you don't want to do that. Okay? What we want to do is we want to clear. So if I highlight this and I click on clear, look at the bottom of your screen where it has the numbers. Watch what happens when I click clear. It all disappears. Now, if I hit enter, it clears my column. Okay? Now I can put in new data. So let's go to the other one. So let's do the same thing with list 2. So I'm going to clear this, hit enter. And so now what I can do is now I can enter my new data in list 1 and list 2. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's go ahead. I'm going to fill in the data from the boundaries and stuff, just like we did in class. So 59.95, and then it's going to be 61.95, 63.95, and 65.95, and 67.95, 69.95, and then 71.95, 73.95, and that's it. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is go to the next column, and I'm going to do the upper class boundaries. Okay, and that's going to be 61.95, 63.95, 65.95, 67.95, 69.95, 71.95, 73.95, and 75.95. Oops. 79.95. Okay. Oh, nope. 75.95. Okay, so again, you just double check. Now, if you already have the midpoints, remember, we need the midpoints. If you already have the midpoints, then you don't have to do this step that I'm doing. You would just put in the midpoints into one of your lists. That would be your X list. So the idea is that you're trying to get a list of your midpoints, because that is going to be your X list for this problem, okay? But let's say all you have is the table. Well, the first thing I would do is just put in the table, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you another thing you can do on your calculator, and that's why I'm setting it up this way. Let's say I have my list 3, so let's clear list 3. So go over here and hit clear, hit enter. And now what I want to do is I want to calculate the midpoints for each class and put them into L3. I'm going to show you how to do that right now. So I'm going to highlight L3. Okay. Now at the bottom it's blank. Okay, so notice at the bottom here it's all blank. I am going to write a formula using L1 and L2 to calculate the midpoint for every single class, okay? How do you do that? Well, here's how you do it. I want to take every observation at L1, add it to L2, and divide by 2, right? That's the formula for midpoint. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go parenthesis, second 1 for L1, plus, then go back to second 2 for L2, end parenthesis, and then divide by 2. So now, if I hit enter, it's going to fill in L3 with all of the midpoints. There you go. Voila. So now, I've got that. Now L3 is going to be my X list. So the only thing I need to fill in now is the frequency list. So let's just do that. So from the example, the table that they give us the frequency. So I'm just going to type those in. So 11, 10, oops, wrong one, hold on. I'm looking at the wrong table. Hold on. Go back up. Start over. So the frequency list is 5, 3, 15, 40, 17, 12, 7, and 1. Okay? So now all I have to do now is my X list now, my midpoints is L3, and my frequency list is L4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to second quit. I'm going to go to stat, calc, and then one variable stats. And now my list, my X list, where my midpoints are at, is L3. So I'm going to go to second 3, and then my frequency list is L4. So second 4, and just to go down to calculate, and there it is. My average, the mean of my distribution is 67.55, which is exactly what we got before using the formula. And if you scroll down, there's the median. You can actually get the median of the distribution as well. Okay? So that's it. So that's how you use the calculator and the one variable stat function to calculate the mean of a data set or the mean or median of a frequency distribution, whether it's ungrouped or grouped. So that's all, and have a good day. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, email me. Have a great day.